Hello everyone! Just a friendly reminder that Concepts and Legends is now an official TCG Player affiliate. If you want to buy any sort of RPG or trading cards, just click the affiliate link below in the description. It helps us bring better videos to you, and your help would be greatly appreciated. Tonight, we have a fun interview lined up. Dave Lee, creator of Durdling Around, speaks with me about lots of fun stuff. MTG comics, MTG gossip, MTG everything. We nerd out like crazy. Why don't you join us? So thank you for joining me today. I wanted to ask, and as far as Magic players, I'm relatively new. So can you tell us what Durdling is first, and then tell us about Durdling Around?
So I guess I learned about Durdling mainly from, players like LSV. He uses it in the sense that, when you play Magic, a lot of times you're playing cards, you're using abilities, but you're not really progressing the game. And I think control players are mainly the most guilty of that, where they're cycling, they're drawing cards, they're looking through their deck, but they're not really actually killing the opponent. And so that's kind of I guess that's a textbook definition of Durdling. And so Durdling Around is kind of like the expansion of that phrase, where if you have like a blue-white player and they're like, casting cantrips and they're tapping lands and, casting mana rocks, but they're not really doing anything. I guess you'd call that Durdling Around. I think that's how most people see that phrase. And so when I started the comic, I just took a little spin on that because I thought, Durdling and doodling sound, pretty similar. So I just did a little bit of play on words, and that's basically how I named the comic.
So when was the first one made? When did you do the very beginning, the first one that you did?
Oh my goodness, it was 10 years, almost 10 years ago, if not almost that. So I think it was probably, I think it was February or March in either 2010 or 2011. I remember because the first comic is about these two mirror that are fighting on mirrored, and they kind of do like a little slap fight thing. But I think it was during Scar's block, which is back in the day. So probably around 2010, I think.
Okay, so who is Misty? Because I see her popping up. Is she's original? Because I don't think I see any Planeswalkers that fit her description.
Yeah, so when I started doing the first few comics, I think it was like maybe 5 or 10 comics in, I introduced Stoneforge Mystic because at the time she was a relatively new card, and she made a big splash. And so I started to do, I started to have a running gag of Stoneforge Mystic and Jace the Mind Sculptor, because at the time, Cobblade decks, they're always in every single Cobblade deck, and so I considered them to be like this pairing of like companion / boyfriend girlfriend, this kind of like running gag. Where they show up in these different comics. And so from that time, I just abbreviated Stoneforge Mystic to Misty. And then people who read the comic, they really liked her as a character. But as time went on, they started introducing like Nahiri. So Nahiri is like the actual Planeswalker version of Stoneforge Mystic. So that's when it gets a little bit murky, because like, where does Misty fall into this, right? So in my head canon, I just assume Nahiri and Misty are the same person.
Maybe they could have a face-off. I mean, I would be Team Misty all the way, because I know that I hate Nahiri. I hate her.
Yeah, she's I don't know. I can understand, being screwed over by Sorin for however many millennia, but I don't know. I always thought Misty was like a little bit more of an optimistic, upbeat character. So yeah, I'd be Team Misty as well.
Yeah, she's much better than Nahiri. So I would like to know, as far as I've tried to do some research, and you went to Pro Tours. Did you play professionally yourself? Anything like that?
Oh no. I was never that good. I like the most is like hanging around actual like people who played in Pro Tours. But I think there's one Pro Tour in Montreal, I think was probably, I'm guessing, around 2014-ish. And I went with a friend to do a little bit of coverage for that event, but like just doing deck techs and just like spectating matches, that kind of thing. But I've never actually played on a remotely competitive level, like maybe at like the store level, but never at like PTQs or anything. I kind of left like the good playing to my friends.
I've noticed in some of your comics, like there's a lot of predictions that come true, or at least they're prescient. I think that you are pretty good at calling out Tibalt early. And you had some interesting stuff to say about Kaladesh and the Phyrexians. Do you have a theory behind that one?
Are you thinking of like in terms of story or in terms of like just how strong or weak certain cards are?
I felt, well, in terms of story, because what I found, like what I really enjoy about your comics is that you understand the mechanics obviously very well. I mean, you're probably a better player than I am, but also you
Mm,
pay attention to the lore as well, and you're versed in that. And the one comic you did where you sort of made a joke that Kaladesh would be sort of a ready-made meal, a microwave meal for Phyrexians because
yeah.
everything's already metallic.
Yeah, I think it's been a very long time since we've seen, new Phyrexia slash Mirrodin. So I think, with the kind of the cameo appearance of Vorinclex, and I didn't follow the lore too closely, but it sounded like Vorinclex got his comeuppance. But I think it'd be very cool to go back and just see what that plane looks like now. Because I think we've seen bits and pieces of it, and maybe like some of the master sets or Modern Horizons, you see, cards pop up here and there that kind of reference the plane, but it's been a long time since we've been back, and we've been to Ravnica like 17 times already. So I feel like we're due for a return to Phyrexia.
Yeah, and so as far as like Phyrexia, I mean, it really would be like a place like Kaladesh would be ideal for the Phyrexians. I just felt like that was a very like interesting observation you made, and I feel like you might be onto something there with as far as where they could take the story, because Vorinclex is it's not really clear what he came to Kaldheim to get. He got away, he went through some sort of portal, and now it's up in the air. And so I feel like your observation about Kaladesh is spot on. I mean, I'm calling it early. I think that would be so interesting to do because it again. I'm just blown out by it. So
Yeah, I think like in doing this comic, it's you kind of, at least I had to kind of strike this balance between, okay, normally when I do a comic, people understand the mechanic side of it. Like if I make a call and say like, oh, Uro is going to be banned or Oko is super strong, like most Magic players will understand that. But when I try and do a comic and add a bit of a lore element to it, people will still get it. But I think it usually takes a little bit longer for people to catch on, because I think players they'll understand, or at least they gravitate more towards the mechanical side of the game rather than the lore side of the game. But I don't want to ignore the fact that like there's an entire background to Kaldheim characters or planeswalkers, or like, for example, even like Vorinclex, what's the history of Vorinclex. I think it's always good to have an eye on what the characters are like. And again, like it's a little bit tricky sometimes to be like, how should I tackle this comic? Should I talk about Uro as like the broken piece of crap that he is, or as like the Titan who controls the storms or whatnot? So yeah, it's a bit of a balance to strike.
who would you say is your one of your favorite MTG artists, and what is one of your favorite MTG pieces of art?
Oh my goodness, there's so many to choose from.
You can
I
give me a
guess I'll
top
say
three if
that
you
when I
can't pick
first
one.
started.
Sorry,
Okay, I'll just rattle off names until you tell me to stop.
rattle away.
When I first started playing Magic, it was a long, long time ago, back in Revised. My favorite artist was Mark Poole, because all of his cards, they depicted like either knights or like these like really cool like fantasy landscapes. So if you look at like, let's say, Phantasmal Forces, or you look at Runes of Trocare, it's like the it's kind of indicative of what Magic art was like at the time, where there wasn't any world building, and there wasn't any marketing, or any like creative direction. It was just like these artists just wanted to depict what this nebulous fantasy world was like. And so it left you a lot of room to kind of fill in the spaces with your imagination. So when you look at Phantasmal Forces, you just see like a bunch of guys with like rainbow wings and like swords, but you kind of have to ask yourself these questions like where did they come from? Who are they fighting? Why are they so strong? Why do they have rainbow wings? And so you're like, you don't have to, you can answer those questions yourself, and you can like make up your own headcanon. So as a 11-year-old at the time, I was just like, my imagination ran amok, and that's what helped me get more into like art and drawing. And so I'm really appreciative. And I met Mark at one of the Grand Prix like a while back, but he's super cool. So he's one of my old school favorites. Say these days, oh, there's so many. I don't know if he does a lot of art these days, but Kekai Kotaki. Um, I, hopefully I pronounce his name right, but he's one of my recent favorites because he's kind of like the knight artist to me. So you can see I have this theme of drawing knights, but
Right.
I think it was like last year. Sorry. So for an entire year, I think he just drew knights. So he drew like, mercenary knights, like wolf knights, demon knights, and that's all he drew. And he was just so, every knight he drew had like such personality and volume and character to it that like I just couldn't look away from his Twitter feed. And then there's so many other ones. I'm going to try and pronounce her name, Magali Villeneuve.
Yeah,
Okay.
Magali Villeneuve, I think is.
Yes. Okay, my French accent's a little bit rusty, but again, like her art is just like so vibrant and just utterly beautiful. I'm missing so many other artists that I can't think of right now, but I probably name those two as ones that I especially like.
They're fantastic. I know it's I knew that was going to be a tough one for you, you being an artist yourself. That's the one where you're like, oh, but I had to ask. As far as you as a player, what would you say your favorite Planeswalker is?
Oh, favorite Planeswalker. Oh, there's so many to choose from again. I'm gonna reference, I guess, my cube experience. And I'll probably be the bad guy, and I guess I'll say either Jason Mind Sculptor or Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Who are both very, very control-y planeswalkers, and that I usually draft blue-white control in cube, and so I'll have to be the bad guy on this one and pick one of those two.
I'm not gonna lie, I have a deck on Arena called Veto, and it's that kind of I guess the phrase would be like, I call it a dick deck, because
I think it's good to, I think, when you first start playing Magic, you get used to like just the standard way of playing, which is like, play lands, play creatures, maybe just play some removal spells, and that's kind of how you play the game. But I think it's also cool to like, turn that on its head a little bit and try playing as like the bad guy for a change, because like it's cool to like see just like from the perspective of like learning how to play the game in different ways, gets exercising how control player thinks and the mindset that they have and the strategies that they have. It's definitely a different way of thinking, but it's also a very good way of like just branching out as a player. So it's cool.
It's also I read in a study somewhere that people who play blue are most likely to enjoy others suffering. So
I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt.
What I also found great about your comic too is it comments on stuff that happens in regards to the culture of Magic, and I didn't even know about this, and I hope I'm not like speaking out of turn, but that John Finkel like OkCupid incident, I was shocked at reading that. I mean, I couldn't believe that this lady just went off like that. I mean, I think in this like modern day culture, the way things are now, I think that would have been a lot of, she would have suffered a lot more from the sort of the backlash that came with it. But as far as the culture goes, how has it changed since you started doing the comic? What do you think about that?
Oh man, there's just so much to cover, I feel like. But yeah, like just to your point, I didn't even remember that incident until you brought it up. But yeah, I think it just goes to show how social media these days is so much more amplified, especially, the last few years, just the way, just the way political discourse is and just how people interact on social media these days. I think it's just so much more volatile, I guess. And like, I think back in the day when that happened, I guess for anyone who doesn't know the incident, there was a blogger who went on a date with John Finkel, who is kind of like pound for pound best Magic player ever. There's a debate to be had, but he's definitely like, in the running for sure. And so this blogger just talked about how, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but just in general terms, how awkward of a date it was. And like, she learned how he was a Magic player, and then she just started drawing kind of all of these assumptions about what a Magic player or a gamer was.
Yeah, she basically her argument was that she was not aware that he was a world like champion, a Magic player, and she was very upset that wasn't disclosed because that made him a nerd, and she can't date a nerd. And that was it. I mean, that was the gist of it. She got on OkCupid or the Gizmodo and just started basically talking shit. And it was, I read that and I was like, wow. And I looked her up, and this person's like verified on Twitter, and I mean, I don't even want to use her name because I don't want to give her any, any press, but it shocked me. And I thought it was really cool how your comic sort of encapsulated that moment. I just wanted to congratulate you on that, because it's kind of, that stuff is overlooked.
Yeah, well, appreciate it. And yeah, if I ever kind of touch on a social issue like that, like I always want to be, I just want to give like, kind of a fair take, right? I don't see the comic as being, this kind of like a firebrand, like incendiary. I want to, have like an extreme take on things, because that's not usually how I am. But I do want to, give things a fair shake. And yeah, just looking back again to your original question of like how things have changed. Yeah, I think that's one example. Like I don't even know if that would be an issue in today. I guess yes and no, because like being a nerd these days is like so mainstream, and
Yeah.
compared to even like 5 years ago, it was still like way more mainstream than it was for like a decade prior to that. And so I don't know if it would be such a big deal. And yeah, I think that's why it probably rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, that like being a nerd was like such a faux pas or whatnot, when these days it's just like it's totally normal.
Yeah.
It was way more acceptable than it is.
It's weird. It's like I mean, like I've been a nerd my entire life. Most nerds are the same, and it's also just I just the fact that somebody even, I mean, this was 2013, that somebody had the audacity to get up and be like, this guy was a nerd, and I'm just horrified by it. I mean, I thought, well, you're cool, lady. I mean,
yeah, and like social media, like I think at the time was kind of like a big like spike in social. That was like a thing in social media back then. When you look at these days, that's what I'm kind of alluding to. I think is that like the severity of an issue like that, it seems in hindsight so minor and minuscule compared to, I guess, the stuff that we have to deal with today.
right.
Or maybe that's just an indicator of like how crazy things are today. But
I mean,
yeah.
it is. I mean, I think that things have definitely gotten crazier. I guess I was blown out that she used someone by name, and he was really nice about it, but I would have been rallying with the fans. I mean, like, I just in this like very PC climate, very watch what you say or you'll get canceled climate. I feel like she would have been canceled to Venus and back.
Yeah, and I remember even at the time, John, he had an overwhelming amount of support. I think most people were on his side because, like, what did he do? Like, he didn't harass anyone. He was like, maybe she didn't expect him to be the person that he was, but he wasn't being. I don't remember him being negative or offensive or anything. He was just kind of being himself and going on a date with him. Like, it's kind of like making a mountain out of a molehill.
Right. It was crazy. I really was truly blown out by doing the research on it. But to shift things away from just like me gossiping my head off, I also see that you've done token art. You do token art as well?
Yeah. So when I did, the bulk of my comic work has been probably between, I guess, 2011 and 2016. And throughout that time, I was working on the comic. I was also, producing tokens for myself just to kind of get my work out there. So I was, putting tokens up on Cartamajigs. I had playmats up on Ink Gaming, just to, get a little bit of merchandise out there. These days I do a little bit more altering than token art. But yeah, I tried, throughout those years, I was trying to, dabble into different things and try to get more into like the merchandising space and just try to learn more as like an artist to be like, what kind of things do people like to have on their accessories. So yeah, it was just a way for me to just kind of try something new and kind of create art for different mediums.
If someone were to want to get hold of your alternates or your tokens, how would they go about that?
So if they're interested in getting tokens, they can go to tokensformtg.com. They can find my playmats at inkgaming.com. And if they ever want to get a commission from me, they can just contact me on Instagram or Twitter so on Twitter, it's at Durfington. On Instagram, it's Durdling Around.
And the final thing that I'm going to say is and I'm going to post the picture as I do this. You can break dance, right?
Where did you hear that?
I didn't hear it. I saw it. I saw a photo of you with like you were airborne basically.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, that was yeah. So once upon a time, I did breakdance. I think it was when I was in university. I learned how to do it because in my first year, I'll tell this story. So in my first year, I was with a friend, and we were at one of those like kind of club association nights where like they try and get people to sign up for different clubs, and we passed by this breakdancing club, and so there are a bunch of people. There's like a floor and music going, and my friend goes to me. She says, "If I can sign up for like cheerleading squad or whatever, you can sign up for breakdancing." And I was like mortified at the thought of learning how to dance because I'd never danced before in my life before that point. But I signed up and I ended up doing it for about 5 or 6 years. I learned how to dance, and it was a really, really cool experience. So I don't know if I can do it these days. Maybe I've got like, I can dance for like a good 30 seconds before I knees give out. But yeah. So yeah, that's definitely something that I'm pretty proud of.
I mean, I'm impressed. You can do art, and you've got your center of gravity allows you to do that. I would destroy walls.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. You might surprise yourself.
Oh, I might surprise myself. If I did it, I would probably surprise somebody by killing them just by the sheer like force. It blows my mind when people could do that. Well, before I let you go, is there anything else that you are doing right now that you'd like to talk about before I say adieu?
No, I'm still doing the comic periodically. I'm looking at the Strixhaven previews right now. But I'll probably do some comics when that set comes out, and I'm still doing the alters on Instagram at Durdling Around. But otherwise, I'm pretty accessible online if anyone wants to chat or get a hold of me.
Well, thank you so much again for talking to me today.
Well, thanks for inviting me. This is super fun.
Have a good one.
You too.
I had fun with that. Nice guy. And breakdancing, I know I couldn't do it. I mean, I can break wind. You can ask my cameraman. And I would like to remind everyone to, again, like and subscribe to be entered in the weekly card giveaways we do. And that is all for now. Until next time, I got a scoop.